Okay, looks like my time is running down, but that's actually a great setup in terms of what they were just talking about in terms of taking blockchain from POC to production. So good morning, everyone. It's really a great pleasure to be here. As you heard earlier this morning at the keynote, Citi is excited that we've made blockchain real. We've taken a integrated solution with NASDAQ into production as of today. And we are integrated with NASDAQ's Link architecture using Chain's blockchain. The solution, which is Citi Connect for Blockchain, addresses liquidity problems within private securities, and it uses blockchain to streamline complex multi-party transactions. As you heard during the presentation earlier today from our speakers from NASDAQ, Citi, and also Chain, partnerships and this concept of minimum viable ecosystems is really critical to creating these creative and productive collisions between organizations to bring something into market. And what I'm going to do is talk about how we think about building those minimum viable ecosystems. That is the theme and the question of the conference, which is how do you make blockchain real? How do you effectively partner to deploy these solutions with real commercial benefit to the end customer? So what I wanted to mention for the next few minutes are a few things. First of all, why partnerships matter. Number two, how to think about and construct partnerships in a very strategic way for your business. And then third, how Citi Ventures approaches partnerships with its business and its clients to deliver and deploy these commercial solutions into the market. So a little context. Citi Ventures is the global corporate venture capital and innovation arm of Citigroup. And we enable innovation across our businesses in a few key ways. The first is that we invest in startups. The second is that we help drive strategic growth initiatives across our businesses. And the second, which is the unit that I'm part of, is that I head our network of global labs and also have been driving and accelerating our partnerships and work in blockchain for the last 3 years. These are some of the companies that Citi Ventures has been working with in blockchain since we've started, and I'm going to go into a few of them a little later during the session. Okay, so if you've been tracking this space like I have for the last 3 years, you've noticed that the number of POC announcements has been on the rise. In 2015, in the second half, which is the earliest time when CoinDesk started reporting these numbers, the number of POC announcements, not completions, was 56. And in 2016, that number ballooned almost 5x, right? Now, one of the things that's notable is that until today, we haven't seen many commercial deployments of this technology. And so, to be honest, we don't have much data publicly about the health of these POCs, how they're doing, and what we can learn from them. And so, the only thing that we do know at the same time is that the number of blockchain consortiums over that same period of time has also been increasing. In 2015, there were 3. At the end of 2016, there were 25 in total. And by the end of the year, they're expecting over 100. These two trends are directly related. And at Consensus last year, we shared a point of view that partnerships, while incredibly difficult, are absolutely essential to take these POCs out of the labs and into market to deliver benefit to the end customer. So why is that? Why are partnerships so essential? Well, it turns out that the question is not specific to blockchain technology. There's a professor, as was educated to me by my friends at the IDEO CoLab, Ron Adner, wrote this book that said that many of the greatest technological innovations and breakthroughs fail not because of a lack of greatness or of talent, but because they lacked the vision to see the broader ecosystem end to end that they play in. That's the reason why these things fail. And so he points to things like the Sony e-reader that didn't succeed. He also points to Apple, which successfully did this with the iPod and the iPhone in music and apps to successfully navigate and manage these ecosystems. But the question for any individual company, if you're out there like me, is how do you possibly understand something outside of your four walls? How do you possibly understand something that you cannot see alone? So as a bank, how do we understand what other financial services companies needs, what energy companies needs, what companies in the manufacturing and logistics space needs in terms of blockchain. And the answer that Professor Adner called is the minimum viable ecosystem, which is defined in his book as the smallest configuration of elements that can be brought together to create unique commercial value. So I'm going to say that just one more time. The smallest configuration of elements that can be brought together and still create unique commercial value. This is exactly how we approached the collaboration with NASDAQ and Chain, and this is a big part of how we think about commercial applications and opportunities in the blockchain space through what we call a minimum viable network for blockchain. So to take this a step further, we often think of blockchain applications as delivering end value to the user. And sometimes that's true. When financial infrastructure is lacking and doesn't exist, like in developing markets, that certainly can be the case. But actually, when you look at the blockchain stack and you unpack it, it's a part of many other layers, from infrastructure and data all the way up to the interfaces. And so you have to consider all layers of the stack. On top of that, this stack is often just part of a broader network, and that network must work together to deliver the end benefit to the end customer. So the hard part is ultimately, how do you go from nothing to a solution in market with customer and commercial value? And the way we think about it is that it's a function of knowing what to build for the customer and market and building the actual thing in technology. Now, there are different approaches to this. You can take an incremental approach and wait for you, others, or your customers to kind of figure out the requirements. The problem with that, however, is that often, as a result, means that it could take a long time, and you may fall behind the market or your customers. Another approach, which is quite successful, a successful one, is a customer-led one, which is you ask what your customers want before you actually build out the solution. And this works really well. Citi actually takes this approach in a number of different areas. It saves a lot of time and money, but it doesn't always work with these technologies like blockchain that are fundamentally introducing new capabilities and experience that don't yet exist in the market. And so what usually happens for technologies like these emerging technologies, is that they take an R&D-led approach, right? The panel prior to me was talking about labs, which I partner with very closely. And these approaches, incubate the technology for a long period of time, only later to push them then into market. The problem, though, is that these innovations can sit in research and development mode for 5, 10, or greater years, right? Becoming technologies, as we all know, looking for problems to solve. So we think that there's actually a much better way to take these technological-based innovations into market much more quickly. And we think that way is through minimum viable networks. Minimum viable networks to discover the commercial applications and blockchain with a focused set of parties in a way that is much faster than any of our companies could have learned alone. And therefore, we can take what would have taken maybe 5 or 10 years into market much faster time frame, as we did with Citi Connect for blockchain in 3 years. So this is the journey of Citi Ventures and its treasury trade business over the last 3 years in blockchain. We shared a different version of this during the keynote this morning, and this one specifically focuses on our internal and external partnering efforts in the blockchain space. One important note is that this doesn't include what we do in capital markets. Capital markets has invested in a range of blockchain startups and also engaged in a number of industry consortiums like R3. But what you'll see here is that partnering for Citi and for Citi Ventures began really, really early. We started partnering as early as May of 2015 with the IDEO Collab, where we became founding members of the Collab alongside Fidelity and NASDAQ and IDEO and Harvard University. And what we were looking at was initially these early sort of opportunities in blockchain, like digital identity, Internet of Things, or smart contracts and other things. And that's how we met sort of the NASDAQ team and started collaborating with them, that led to the Citi Blockchain Connect platform that was announced today. Now, shortly after, I launched a Citi Accelerator for blockchain that now spans 30 people across the company. And so what Morgan McKinney was saying earlier today is that minimum viable networks don't need to only exist in the external world. They can also exist internally. We have all of our businesses and all of our functions engaged in this internal accelerator, everything from compliance, risk, InfoSec, operations, and technology that have been partnered with us from the very beginning. We invested in Chain, Series B, and then we also started to expand our partnerships in 2016 and 2017 with the CoLab. One of our most recent engagements is around Mosaic, a digital identity lab that includes many of the digital identity startups, that are participating in Consensus this year. And then more recently with Cisco Systems, GE, and a number of other companies to look at supply chains and opportunities in that space. And then obviously today, during the keynote, we announced Citi Connect for Blockchain with NASDAQ and Chain. So as you can see, partnerships have been integral to our strategy in this space since the very beginning. They've accelerated our efforts, and they've helped us drive to real commercial solutions with impact in the market in a very short span of time. The last slide that I have here is just a little bit more detail on the types and quality of partnerships that Citi Ventures has been starting to help build. Chain obviously has helped us and our businesses learn a lot about blockchain infrastructure and also take other learnings from other companies that are working with them. The IDEO CoLab, which we mentioned and really spawned the partnership that led to Citi Connect for Blockchain, has helped us explore blockchain from a human-centered perspective. Because if you think about what IDEO is really great at, it's human-centered design. And in a space that is primarily technology, we felt that that was a really kind of core capability and lacking, and one that has really helped us not only understand the implications of blockchain to industries, people, and society, but also connect with other industries in other spaces like energy, healthcare, and looking at things like decentralized energy markets, the Internet of Things, and digital identity. And then more recently, we've kicked off an initiative in digital identity, and then another one in the manufacturing and supply chain space with Cisco and a bunch of companies that are listed here. So all of these collaborations are currently active. They're in the process of moving forward a number of collaborations that we're hoping to announce in future months and the years ahead. This afternoon, I'm going to be leading a roundtable session at 3 p.m., and it's going to feature some of the key people from our Treasury and Trade business that worked on Citi Connect for Blockchain, also NASDAQ link, the head of the IDEO CoLab that has been mentioned a number of times, and also the head of Cisco Hyper Innovation Labs that has been driving our partnership in the logistics space. So if you guys want to learn, engage with us on how we approach partnering to deliver value. We'd love to meet you and help make blockchain real. Thank you very much.